So we are the Transatlantic Dialogue, and we have Mr. Baptist with us. The best thing is I met Baptist yesterday, and Baptist is an artist. And Baptist, what are your ongoing projects? In fact, like I was seeing your artworks, amazed by the theme. But then, could I know a little bit about you as an artist?
Thanks a lot, Vivek, for having me here. And yes, it's a pleasure to be in Luxembourg, which is the first time I've been in this country, though I've been around Europe from time to time. And so, along with this conference, the conference is based on peace and soft power. And so the University of Luxembourg sort of approached me to sort of do this exhibition, which, because my work dwells around war and conflict, and so they thought it would be interesting to sort of have this exhibition positioned around the conference. And in general, my works are about war and conflict, and I work on this theme about the Siachen Glacier conflict, which is a conflict ongoing between India and Pakistan on the northern borders, and it's going on since 1984. That is one of my projects since the last. I started this project researching in 2007, and I continued doing this particular work on this particular subject. Another subject is also about looking at the presence of Indian soldiers during World War I and World War II, because it was a history that somehow has not really been sort of explored, nor in India itself, not also in the Western world. And so a lot of these colonial forces that were part of the British Army were not really taken, they were almost, it was seen as cannon fodder. So I'm trying to look at this particular part of history, and so it's also my way of understanding history in this sort of way where it's more organic. It's about researching, finding some archives, stories, etc.
In fact, I should tell my viewers that you have presented your artwork at the Transatlantic Dialogue over here, and there have been a lot of participants who have come down to see from the United States, from European Union, and they've all gone through your different artworks which has been positioned down. And what prompted you to choose this particular theme, especially focusing on the conflicts?
Yeah, so I used to be a graphic designer, and then I sort of realized that it was not really possible as a graphic designer to really have an opinion, because it was also so driven by what your client did and what was when you worked in an advertising agency. And it was a great fortune that I had the chance of doing a master's, and then I sort of was able to do the visual arts. I'm just fast tracking into many things, but there was more to that. And I think it was interesting when I was in 2006-07, I was sort of also very aware of the fact that, I've been born and brought up in Mumbai and in this kind of bubble of the city, and very protected, I never had to go away or, move around, because, certain histories, you have to leave countries, you have to leave neighborhoods. So I was also very sort of interested in this particular movement, and the fact that I just couldn't understand how do soldiers do the work they do, and why do borders exist. And it's like this kind of questions were always hovering around me. And also the fact of when you're in the army, you are also seen as a kind of this superhuman being. So can that and as a child, I never could really be part of any sports, because I was not interested in the sports. I was more interested in the arts. So then always this can you be part of the Boy Scouts, and you have to be this fit, you have to have a certain body language, you have to do that. So I used to struggle with all that as a child, and so when as I was growing as an adult, I still struggled with it. And so I was trying to understand, how does someone join the army, because it's almost like a gateway to almost you could die. Of course, we could die anyway. Curious about this particular notion of what does it mean to be a person, a human being, and then to be part of this particular nation, and how do you serve your nation? Can you only serve your nation being a soldier? Can you be also someone who's an artist, who's this, who's that? And each one has their own way of sort of building up a country or building up a nation and all that. So all these things were hovering around my head, and I took on a chance of actually there was something called the Peace Project, which was announced by a museum in the USA, and I basically responded. All artists from around the world could respond, and I thought I wanted to respond with the project about the Siachen Glacier, and I did this one small artwork with bandages, and I thought it was very interesting, and I felt something that I was touching something which I don't know anything about at 2007, and that sort of I said, can I just put a pile of bandages and talk about a conflict that is so far away from me? How do I do that? And that started basically the curiosity. And then I started to make trips to Ladakh. And the unknowing really had prompted me to basically go into this subject. And the more I would find out, and the more I went to Ladakh and tried to, talk to soldiers, civilians across that landscape, the more curious I became about their lives and how basically one navigates the armed forces. What does one do? Can the soldier cry? Does he have emotion? So my first project on the Siachen was all about if the soldier can have emotions. Can emotions exist on a glacier? So that is how I started. And then continuing, I think it is also very important when I was doing what I was doing that I also wanted to have a critical point of view to sort of say something about what I felt about this particular conflict, about the lives of soldiers, about the lives of civilians, etc. So like that I was trying to manifest, and it was also a lot about storytelling really. So.
And when you came down with this project, what was the first theme that you took up? When it was like it, and which year was this?
This was in 2006.
2006 was the first project that you came with, and what was the theme?
So the theme was, I was trying to look at whether emotions can exist on a glacier.
That was the beginning.
Yeah, the start. And I was trying to excavate how soldiers deal with the time that they are there, because you have to be there for 3 months, and it's one of the most severe posts in the Indian Army, they say. If you've gone to the glacier and you've done your 3 months without losing body parts, you've done the thing. It's like one of the very prestigious posting. And so I started to look at soldiers, and I was interested how when I would speak to soldiers, there would never be a moment of saying, oh, I was scared, I was anxious, I was crying, etc., or I was missing home. There was always a facade, I think. And I think that is why not, because that's how the army operates. And so I was trying to understand, can emotions exist? And I was trying to read between the lines, between the stories, and trying to understand what is not being told, what I was assuming, what is speculating. And also there are assumptions which are very obvious. You are in a cold temperature. You're going to be extremely fearful of your death, of your life, because on this conflict, the enemy is not the opposite country. It is really minus 60 degrees. That is really, you are there really fighting nature, and not really, you have confrontations from time to time on the glacier, but really it's the climate conditions. And so that was my interest of can a soldier take a shower on the glacier? What is he eating? What is he dressing? What are the clothes he wears? So it was really to understand the human aspect of this conflict, to what do these soldiers do? How do they navigate? Yeah. So that was the first project that came about from this particular topic. Yeah.
And now, when you started up with this, was it only with the Siachen Glacier that you focused on, or was it also with the other borders, which include the Northeast, which is also one of the very important borders for India?
Yes. Thing is that the way I work, I invest a lot of myself and everything and anything. It's not just, though it's a subject for our conversation point of view, but really it's a commitment. And somehow when I work, I prefer that I can really give in all that much, and to take on this other borders yes, it is, why not, it is possible, but I find it extremely difficult to just access this particular topic just because I work on this, just because I work in war and conflict. I cannot also respond to everything that comes my way. Yes, I am digesting it emotionally, I'm digesting it optically, physically, etc., but it's not always easy to manifest. So I also chose to just focus also on this particular subject, because I think some of the details that I deal with on this particular topic are also reflective of other border issues, in some way. But yes, I chose to really focus and narrow it down on this particular subject, because I think there is so much more to discover and so much more to unpack. For example, the second part of the project was looking at how fabric plays a role. What does it mean to have fabric? How does fabric protect you? When I say physical fabric or the mental fabric. Then the third iteration was looking at the history of the glacier. And the fourth iteration was looking at the Porter's story. So there's so much to work on, and I have more other directions that I want to take. But yes, I prefer to sort of have this sort of narrow focus. When I say narrow, it's very open in terms of the subject, but I really try to look at this particular subject in this more focus across these years. I feel I can respond more, and yeah, it helps me to sort of respond. Yeah.
Now, how has your artwork been received in the home country, India? And how has your artwork been received in Europe and the US that you, at one point of time, moved out again?
So I've not really moved, well to say, I've not really moved out. I go from time to time. India's home and will always be. I just keep moving around as and when projects, residencies and scholarships and etc. The thing is that I can never really foretell, I cannot not foretell, sorry. I don't know if I can sort of perceive the sort of the reaction of what people can feel. Sometimes I can, because they let me know, but I will never be able to know of the other perspectives that no one comes and tells me. So sometimes I also want to be aware that some of the perspectives that I get are of that is great, and then at the same time there are certain perspectives I will never know. So yes, in India there was, as I said, when I did this exhibition in India, in Delhi itself, it was a public gallery, and in this public gallery there was a lady who came up to me and was extremely furious, says, who is this artist and what is this exhibition, because her father was on the glacier. So she knew a lot about how her father experienced the glacier, and she was very furious and a little bit shaking, and she said, what do you think, what do you know about this particular topic as an artist, blah blah blah. And it was very interesting. That was the first conversation, and as she moved around the exhibition, she could dissect every artwork in such a way, because she could see the stories that her father had experienced, that her father would tell her, etc., etc. So it was really a very touching moment for me to see that. And she was not someone from the art world. She was really someone like a normal civilian who just had a father who had lost his life on the glacier. So it was very moving to know what did she think. And when I got that feedback on that conversation, I felt I did something, I touched something. Because again, you have to understand, I do not have any kind of history of the army, nor my family, nor I've never been on the glacier, because it's very difficult to go on the top. I was only navigating the region. So with all these sort of limitations, I had to work, and I wanted to still be very sort of, try to tell the story as much as possible in this also very, I don't want to use the word authentic, but in the more, in a way that was also very close is the right word. I don't want to use true and all this authentic. It was very close to what the experience was. And she saw a video of all these objects moving, and in this artwork there are these objects like Milkmaid containers and processed food cans, etc., that were moving very vigorously. And she noticed one of these Milkmaid condensed milk. She said, my father would long for fresh milk on the glacier. And it was interesting that how something so basic like fresh milk becomes such a luxury. And she could see that, because one of the soldiers did tell me that is what they would do. They would eat all food that was processed and condensed and frozen and etc. So it was interesting how, and one of the photographs I have is with these black airplanes. And she said that I used to sort of long to receive letters or something from her father. It's been a while, but I remember her responding to this one photograph which was about these black airplanes. I long to see my children, that was the title, and she could sort of identify. So yeah, and when I've shown this across, in other countries, like say in Europe, yes, I think, there's a certain understanding of art here, understanding of art there, and I can see how people respond. And at the same time, there is a difference. There's also not much of a difference, let's put it like that. But I must highlight this one story where I showed this work in Ladakh itself, in the area of Siachen, because it was very important for me to bring this work back in the landscape where the conflict is quite active. It was challenging. Who is my audience? The local villagers, the army, the Buddhist monks, etc. And within all that, there was this response by one child, and she saw one of these artworks where I use gauze bandages, and she said that I can only see bullets over here in this particular artwork. So that was again another big highlight, and I was very lucky that she came up to me and gave me her point of view. At the same time, I've also had sort of people from the army comes up to me and says, we are watching what you're doing and I know what you're trying to say. So even that was a part of the response. So yes, so there has been all sort of, all kind of responses, I think, yeah. Because art, I think, cannot always please everyone. It'll have to disturb somebody, or confront someone, or it has a different. Each one responds to it in a different way. So, yeah.
So art is about storytelling.
Exactly. For me, yes, I really think more. Yes, I'm an artist who's telling stories. That I really like to sort of think of it like that. Yeah.
And one of the things also that I intend to ask you is, art is about storytelling, but then artists also, like, how is the future of the artist which is down there? Because definitely, if you notice, you had your own struggles to expand your artwork to different environments which is there.
Exactly.
But then what is it for other artists who also have very interesting themes like this? So what is it that you would like to suggest to them?
I would think it's a very difficult journey, I think, because when you're an independent artist, you're by yourself. There's no affiliation with any institute or a official body. Of course, from time to time you get projects and residencies, but you're really independent. I think it's a very tough journey. Yes, for some artists you can be within, say, 7 days you have a big bang, and then you are like this, blah blah blah. You can be the big thing, or sometimes it takes years, and sometimes it might be doing it for years and nothing really happens. It is I would say, is to be very proactive. I think that is what I always tell young artists, to be very proactive. I have been proactive. That's the reason why I think I can do what I do at this point of time. Being extremely resilient, and I think to be committed. When people say, oh, you're passionate about the arts, I don't think I like that word passionate. Passionate is that I'm passionate about eating ice cream and chocolate cakes. I'm passionate. But I think with the arts, I feel I prefer to use the word I'm committed. And you have to be committed. You have to have fire in your stomach or under your whatever. But you have to have that. It is not very easy. There might be times where you would doubt yourself, but you have to believe. I'm not confident sometimes of the works I do, but I do believe in them. And I think this kind of attitude has helped me to sort of go through these years, the 17 years. I mean, and there's more I would like to, and I want to continue forever. But I think it's about being very resilient. Very, very important. I think resilience it is very difficult. It's very easy to say, and if I have to tell myself this, some years ago, even today, hey, it's nice to say, but how does it work in practice? Yeah, I don't know, but you just have to go through it and be continuously sort of, and you have to also find your own ecosystem, because there are certain subjects that might be of interest to certain sort of, bodies or this or that. So it is also to find this kind of ecosystem of like-minded people, because, for example, the kind of works I do might not necessarily be that would work for some project or some residency or for some country or etc. It's also to find that sort of way where you can basically find like-minded people. When I say like-minded, not people who are not saying yes, yes, yes to what you're doing, but to also sort of to connect with you, to allow you, to give you space, to sort of, to believe in you. And I think it takes a lot of, it's not very easy. I mean, for some artists you can have that journey like this or that. But I think it's always important to be really, to be consistent and, to be really continuously, also experimenting with your works, Like, for example, I've never used color in my work till today, ever. I've never really consciously taken a color and used. The works in my works, the color really happens when it is something that I've taken from a found object. I'm not deciding a color. So one day I will want to go into that direction where I'm actually using color in my work. Or for the fact I've been recently drawing, which I learned, of course. I also did part of it in graphic design, but I completely put it down the carpet. And so I'm also looking at drawing, which is also very challenging for me, whether you can, how can you explore drawing? And, I've never done painting, and one day if I want to do that, because I work with mixed medium, I really keep it very open.
Excellent, Baptist. It's a pleasure to talk to you. It's nice talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're most welcome. And all the best to you too, Vivek.
Thank you so
Great.
much.